What are the themes of these people who, by the time you're talking to them, they're a big deal, but oftentimes they didn't start out that way, right?
No, and I mean, as you know, because of the work you do, entrepreneurs are not superheroes, right? They're no different than anybody else that you know. They are all Clark Kents, right? The only difference between the people I interview and the people listening is that those Clark Kents went into the phone booth and put the cape on, a cape that I believe we all have access to, and they took off, and they really pursued an idea that some people thought was crazy and some people thought was impossible, but they believed in it and they pursued it and persevered. And that's really the beginning of what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
You talk about this cape that we all have access to. What is that cape?
It is a series of learned skills. So, a lot of people will say to me, what do these entrepreneurs have in common? Why did Kevin Systrom build Instagram? Or, why did, Kathleen King build Tate's Cookies? And really what I have found is that they all have skills that they have learned, honed, and developed. It is a little bit like standing at the free throw line and shooting 100,000 baskets. The first 10,000 you are going to miss. The second 10,000 you're going to sink a few. By the time you get to the final 90,000th, you're going to start to sink those free throws. And some of those qualities are things like the ability to withstand rejection. This is why so many people in sales and marketing become amazing entrepreneurs. Because if you're a salesman or saleswoman, you know that your life is about getting doors slammed in your face or phones slammed down.
Yeah, it's like you have to have thick skin.
You have to have thick skin. And if you can develop that, because I believe that this is a quality that all of us have the capacity to develop by just doing it and learning how to accept rejection, you can build a company, you can build a business.
So clearly perseverance is really important. We talk all the time about just never quit. Like not quitting is half the battle. Yet I sense that as you've talked to these leaders and these founders, it's not just not quitting. Like you have to be practicing the right things. And you said developing these skills, because I know a lot of businesses, 30 years they go on, they never quit, but they never really get the plane off the runway. No. And yet you've talked to ones who have gone from, really nothing going for them to now they're a major national household brand. What are these skills that they're working on and developing?
Well, I really think that a lot of it begins with solving one problem at a time, right? I mean, essentially a business is a series of problems, because a business begins as somebody usually it begins with somebody confronting a challenge. Maybe there's something that they have to solve, but they can't find the product or the service to solve that problem. So the obvious answer is, well, I've got to come up with it, right? This is how the Ring doorbell was invented. Jamie Siminoff had a problem. He had an office in the garage of his home, but he couldn't answer the front door, and he was working out of his home by himself. And what happens is you have a problem and then you have to solve that problem, except that a business is just a series of problems that will never go away. There's a wonderful African proverb that you may know, and it is how do you eat an elephant? One small bite at a time. And it's a wonderful proverb because it applies to the idea of a business. How do you run a business or solve problems in a business? And it's one problem at a time. And in the beginning, these problems are enormous. And over time, they become more manageable. They're like lily pads that you can jump from one problem to the next and to the next and to the next. And I really believe that the most successful entrepreneurs break it down into small chunks over time, until they are able to resolve problems in a very manageable way.
Yeah, and it builds momentum as they go. Of all the founders that you've interviewed with How I Built This, We're talking about seeing a problem and then going to solve it. In the case of the Ring doorbell, he literally has this problem personally. And he's going, this is driving me crazy. I'm going to be my first customer. And that's kind of that inspiration, that entrepreneurial spark. I've found this with all the businesses we work with. It's not very often that a great business starts with a founder who says, I bet I can make a lot of money if I just whatever, right? I have a problem and it's driving me crazy. And then a business is born.
Right. Exactly. I mean, think about one of my favorite stories is the story of Dyson, the vacuum cleaner. I mean, James Dyson, when I interviewed him, he was I think the 12th richest person in the United Kingdom and the third or fourth biggest landowner. But at the age of 42, he was broke. He had no money. He was living off of his wife's income. She was a part-time art instructor because he had this vision for a better vacuum cleaner. I have a shop vac, which I love my shop vac, but when the bag of that shop vac is full, it stops sucking anything in because vacuum cleaners require a bag. And he had this vision for creating a bagless vacuum cleaner. It took him 8 years, 5,500 prototypes, working on this in his backyard, and people were telling him he was nuts, but he was single-mindedly focused on creating something that was going to make, household cleaning better and more efficient. And he wasn't thinking about becoming a billionaire. Obviously he did. But he was really thinking about just improving the vacuum cleaner. And that was what motivated him.
It's like becoming a billionaire was a byproduct of being obsessed with solving this problem.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and of course there are people who start businesses to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I find is that when you're motivated by a different sense of purpose, that's not just financial, but that's about, making a part of our world better or more efficient, or offering a product or a service that's going to improve the way people live or make them happy. I mean, I've done the story of Stacy's pita chips and Tate's cookies, and they're wonderful products. I mean, they didn't change the world, quite like Virgin Atlantic did or Wikipedia did, but they did bring joy to people and do bring joy to people. And that's an incredibly powerful motivating factor when you're starting something out. Because if you know that it's not about what's going to end up in your wallet, but what's going to end up improving people's lives, it gives you that fuel to keep pushing forward.